Hello and welcome along to the Punter, the home of the best betting advice anywhere. Sounds like an idle brag, but I can back it up. Just watch it for the next 48 minutes. Got some great experts for you to recap an amazing week of European football and sport generally, and also to look ahead to the weekend, that huge title-deciding clash on Monday night. First of all, the betting butler, Nigel Seeley, is here. Nigel, good to see you.
Good afternoon, Nick. How are you?
Yeah, I'm great. Really good. I've had a really enjoyable week, actually, just watching the football and having some investment. How's it been from a betting point of view, though?
I mean, the Barcelona result was an absolute dream result for bookmakers, not necessarily for us, but it was an absolute perfect result for the bookies. And also, Chelsea being in the final means that the turnover in the final, despite, whatever you say, people say Barcelona and Real Madrid are quite sexy, but having a British club an English club in there in the final means that betting turnover is massive. Yeah. So all in all, it was a great result for bookmakers. Not so great for punters because they piled on Barcelona to win on every single sort of permutation, to nil everything. So apart from that, no good. Other than that, real sort of average week really, apart from the Champions League. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm also pleased to welcome the return of the punter himself, Mr. Neil Channing. A 2-week absence.
I know. I went off to play poker. Sorry about that. Yeah. I'm back now for more gambling. Yes.
Yeah. And so, from a punter's point of view, the Champions League. A lot of money on Barcelona.
It's funny because Nigel says, it's a bad result for punters and a great result for bookmakers. But of course, we live in a day and age now where on every gambling thing you can take one view or the other view. Half the punters probably did all right, but I think, would you say, Nigel, there was a split between your average man in the street has done his money on Barcelona, and lots of big wagons have lumped in betting the 4-1 on. But I think a lot of the pros will have done okay out of this game. In running, it threw up some amazing prices.
In running, there was some of the best value I've seen all season. But I mean, for a bookmaker's perspective, it's not only to win the match, it's like long-term positions as well. I mean, Barcelona were heavily backed all the way through. Anti-post isn't as big as it has been when me and Channers were in the game, but it's still a big result for them against Chelsea in the final.
Just to talk about.
Talk about the in-running thing, because we were talking off-air about how Barcelona were just massively overestimated during the game.
Take a typical game, any average Premier game, to score a goal no goal in the second half is about, what, 3-1?
Yeah.
That's about right. You could have 9-1 that there'd be no goal in the second half.
Wow.
So at half-time, no goal score at 9-1. Yeah. I mean, that's...
You still done your money.
You did your money, but that's fairly amazing.
That Torres goal probably cost a little bit of money for.
I mean, it was me. I was on that 9-1.
Yeah, it was just a market that basically nobody could think that Chelsea could hold out of 11 men, let alone 10 men, and 84% of possession, missing penalties, and the pressure. Everyone thought surely it will be a goal for Barcelona, and the thing that made me stand up and take note was I was following the game. And Chelsea, I rang up with about 60 minutes to go, someone here actually, because I was coming back from doing the pre-match punter, and I said, what price are they to qualify now? And he said it was 2-5 Barcelona to qualify at 62 minutes. Yeah. And in this time, they've got to score, they've got to score, so 62 minutes. And I think, and obviously if Chelsea scored, the whole game, and I thought, that's wrong. But even though I knew it was wrong, I couldn't bring myself to
I did it. I bet Chelsea at 11-4 with about half an hour to go. Yeah. And there was you could bet at the start of the second half. I think maybe actually 55 minutes in. I think I laid 2-1 that there'd be 6 or more goals in the game. Yeah. I mean.
That's extra.
They're not just going to win 20-0, are they? I mean, at the end of the day, these teams shut up shop when they've done their job.
But it is Barcelona. I mean, looking back again,
but that's
no one will learn from it.
Well, and that's the thing, isn't it? There's the mystique around the team, and you get this in sports betting so often where people overestimate the strength of the favourite, and we've talked about it before. Let's move on to the final, shall we? As we know, it's going to be Chelsea, Bayern Munich, and as you said, Nigel, this will see a huge amount of trade. It would see a lot of trade anyway, but because Chelsea are there and there's an English club, it'll see more trade. I think that Chelsea's price is a little bit big for this match. I thought it was a little bit big for the second leg as well. What do you think?
Yeah, I do. I mean, we spoke about. I thought when I knew the final, I priced up around about 4-7, 5-4, 2-5, 15. We all know Chelsea are about some key players, but Bayern Munich have some key players as well, and I think they sort of even themselves out the players they've lost. The thing is with Chelsea here is that all the way through the Champions League, Chelsea have been opposed by every punter. They've always been the bookmaker, and very much so unusual. It happened that an English team will be cheered by bookmaking fraternity to get to the final. I think this would all change on the final because these are like workman's prices.
It's kind of funny, isn't it? It's kind of funny.
That will entice the punters.
Because you have to think who's going to be betting these prices. Bayern were backed yesterday, I think, at 2-1 on. You could have got 2-1 on. And you've got to think that's professional money going in. I mean, that's not your average fella thinking, oh, you know, I'm going to think several weeks ahead about a football match and have my money on. You know, your average punter just wakes up in the morning, buys the Racing Post, has a look at what they tip and has a bet.
That surprises me if that's true, though, because if you look around at the statistical modelling websites, and you can, I don't know how much store people put in those, but this is basically a 55-45 game. This is a game where Bayern have an edge, but it's nothing like a 5-2 on.
I think perception is they're at home in their own stadium.
Yeah.
But I think that could play against you. I think the pressure will be on you.
Generally speaking, when people bet odds-on chances in anything, but particularly in football, they wait until just before the kickoff. If you're going to lump on something at odds-on, you generally want to know the team news, you want to know all the information you can have. So it's kind of weird that people are lumping on odds-on.
Well, I think the other thing as well, nowadays people look for price movement. So they think the way, look at the 1 to 5 and think, you know what, come kick-off time, this will be 143, 144. So they get the 10 grand on, knowing that for a game like this, the Sporting Bet, the Blue Square, and all the bookmakers will lay a large chunk, and knowing that they can offload it at 144, 145, and just take 0.5 in return. That's where the big money's going on now.
All right, interesting stuff. You fancy Chelsea, we think there might be a bit of value in that price. So let's move on. Let's just quickly look at the Chelsea manager market, because obviously the success of them in this competition has changed that significantly. If you want to bet on this now, Roberto Di Matteo goes odds on or even money. I don't know how much interest this market's getting, presumably a little bit here and there after this week.
Yeah, I mean, Di Matteo's come down from all rates of 16 to 1 into odds on shots. I mean, he was 8 to 1 a few weeks ago, and they got through to the FA Cup final, which I thought was a bit of value. But everyone I know who knows Chelsea, and everyone I know who I listen to who knows about football within the industry, tell me there's no way he's going to get the job.
I can't have that if they win the Champions League, because Abramovich has been obsessed by the Champions League since day one.
I think if they win the Champions League, they're right. But instead of backing Di Matteo 8 to 11, you might as well back and win the Champions League, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
15 to 8.
Yeah, definitely.
So like, if you think Di Matteo's going to get the job, don't back the 8 to 11.
That's the question.
Back 15 to 8.
That's the question. If they don't win the Champions League, can he get the job?
No.
Because if the answer is definitely no, well, obviously it's better to back them 15 or 8 to win the Champions League.
I mean, well, actually, you say that you'll not get a job. It means that they're not in the Champions League football next season, which means they don't have to. They're probably not in a position to bring in a Guardiola, a Mourinho, or a big name. So the chances, if they're not in the Champions League, it could enhance his chances, I think.
If they win the Champions League, does that mean the 4th place team doesn't get in?
It means they don't get it, and the third
is
place
likely
team
to be Newcastle at the
or
moment?
Tottenham,
Yeah, that
or Arsenal,
the top
maybe.
3 would go through.
That's a bit of a bad beat for them.
It is a bad beat, but they knew the risks. Let's move on to they're calling it the title decider. Technically it isn't, but it probably will be the game that decides the title. Huge match on Monday night between Man City and Man United.
You're not clinging on to the fact that Liverpool might still win the title, are you? I think
wait,
it's mathematically not possible.
Top half.
Oh, okay, fine.
You might not get a top half after the weekend.
Well, the idea is that City could win this and still not win the title.
Oh, I see.
Sorry.
I thought you were saying that Tottenham was still about to mount a charge.
Yeah. We'll have a look at the title odds first, and Man United 5-2 on or 9-4 on. A little bit of difference there, but no difference in the Man City price, entertainingly. Somebody squeezing
meanies, sporting bet. You meanies.
A little bit mean. Just for this Monday night game, in sporting terms, it's a huge occasion. It's one of the biggest British Isles football matches of the last 10 years. In terms of trade, how much action will you see on it? It is a Monday night game.
I think it'll be massive.
Yeah.
I think it will be absolutely massive, because also, it's not just this market, it's the bookings, it's the corners, it's everything.
And all three possibilities are within the realms. No one's odds on. Monday night games are generally the biggest games anyway, aren't they? And I think it'll be enormous.
Absolutely enormous. Let's look at the odds for the match then. You can get 11 to 10, 6 to 5 about Man City, 12 to 5 the draw, and 23 to 10, 11 to 5 classic prices.
Now the market seems to be saying that because Man United, a draw is a pretty good result for them.
Yeah.
Whereas Man City really have to win. Therefore, it's like Man United are not really trying to win. That's a load of rubbish, isn't it? I mean, isn't this a big price, United?
Well, the thing is, Man City, without question, are much better footballing side, aren't they? And if you look at player for player, they should do a number on Man United, no doubt about it. But I know guys at Man City, and I know fans of Man City, they tell me that they won't be able to handle the pressure. Whereas Man United could go, well, this is day in, day out to them. He said there's absolutely no way they'll win this derby match. This is like one of the biggest City fans. He just doesn't think they can handle the pressure. And if you look at their run for the title, they've only kicked in form when they're out of it.
But don't you think if they were level on points, that Man United would be a shorter price to win the game? The fact that people are sort of saying
I think you're right.
They'll be really happy with the draw, that's so much built into the price that they've discounted the chance of Man U actually winning the game.
I think City 11 to 10 is too short. I think that's the bet.
I think it must be. I think it must be as a consequence.
I think Man United get something from it purely and simply because of the experience they have.
Yeah, I could only at these prices I could only like.
That's the bet for me. Laying Man City 11 to 10. I mean, there will be money for Man City because when the team's caption comes up and they have Aguero, Silva, Balotelli, maybe in the net Evans, and you have Johnny Evans, and they're like. But there's something about Man City when the pressure's on, and they're not. They'd have a time-form squiggle next to their name if they were a racehorse. And I think 11 to 10 is far too short.
What sort of match is it going to be? We're going to look at the goals market, the over-unders. What kind of game do we expect? I think it depends on what Man United's approach to the game is, doesn't it?
I think United will go there very defensively because if they take the game to them, I think that's suicide. But he's an experienced man; he knows exactly what to do.
I'm predicting that everyone will consider it to be a low goal game. I'll bet the unders. I'll press up till about 20 minutes. I'll have just done my biggest bet as the first goal goes in.
Sweating at the last minute. And
and Man United will score one in the 96th minute.
And then you take the dog for a walk for the last 15 minutes because you can't bear watching it.
If you do like the unders, under 2.5 goals is 11 to 10 with Sporting Bet. Under 3.5 goals, 11 to 4 on.
Much better bet in running these markets. The first 15, 20 minutes, a goal goes in. I mean, Man City, Man United, everyone was saying it was going to be under 2.5 goals. It was 6-1 because it was a goal after 5 minutes. I mean, it all depends on the first 10 minutes and the nature of the way the team's set out. So if you are going to bet on these markets, I don't think you could possibly tip up any advice now, but I think in running it gives you such a great opportunity.
I quite like the draw at half time in this game at like 6-5. I think
because it's so likely to be
so much at stake here that people can't afford to make a mistake.
I think there's a misconception about how Man City will play as well, because I think people think they have to win the game, therefore they'll go for it.
But you don't do that. You don't do that in the first 5 minutes.
No, you don't. And Mancini definitely won't. He's an Italian manager. Yeah. Italian managers always have the same approach to this kind of games. They always see what happens, make sure they don't concede.
Of course,
because they know if they concede, they're done. Basically.
Now, when you get to 55 minutes, and things are desperate, now you can throw things forward.
Have you seen the bookings quote to this? Have you seen the bookings?
No, I haven't. No.
They're up at about 72 bid, 72, 76 the bookings. So they're saying between 7. You need more than 7 or less than 7 bookings.
Yeah.
I know the nature of the game, but that looks very high.
And the referee's not going to want to ruin the biggest game of the year.
Mariner, the referee. Not Paul Mariner, like we remember.
But he's not going to want to ruin the biggest game of the year with Cards in the first half, is he? Anyway, fantastic stuff. It's going to be a fantastic sporting occasion and lots to bet on. Lots of other football games this weekend. Surprise, surprise. We'll get to the bottom of all of them after this break. Welcome back to the Punter, picking our way through the sporting action this weekend and finding the value for you. All we're interested in is making you money. What a lovely show. I've been joined in the studio by Chris Graham.
How are you doing?
How are you, Chris? Held up by the late running of your school disco party.
Yeah, exactly. I pulled as well, right? So.
What are you doing here, you crazy man?
I'll see you on next weekend.
Yeah, well, that's fair. No, you're playing it cool, I like it.
Yeah,
let's get into the weekend's football. Unfortunately, we have to talk about Liverpool, painful as it is for me. They're away at Norwich, and someone's put it on the TV, which increases the amount of betting there'll be on Norwich. Prices, I think that, I hate to say this, traitorous though it is, I think laying Liverpool could be one of the better bets this weekend. I look at the prices and they're even money, away from home, a week before the cup final. Are they even going to put a tackle in, is my question.
Well, the key thing here for me is Steven Gerrard, whether they risk him for this game or they don't risk him. Same for the cup final. I mean,
so do you think Liverpool's better when he plays or when he doesn't play?
I think, statistically, look at this season, they're better without him.
Yeah.
But he's an influential character, and I think for punters, they would rather see him in the Liverpool side than without him, regardless of the stats. But I agree with you. I think even when they played at Anfield, it was 1-1. Liverpool, even money odds on have been the bookmakers' saviours throughout the whole season. They've cost punters absolute fortunes. The only thing about it is that we're not quite sure what mood Norwich are in. I mean, they're coming towards the end of the season. They've done very, very well. Very, very testing season. Very small squad. A few key injuries, and that would be
Don't
my
worry, Nigel,
reservation.
because in studio is our Norwich expert. Neil, what mood are they?
Well,
You've won a decent amount of money on
They're
them.
beautiful, aren't they? They're
I love Norwich.
They're beautiful.
Norwich is more Plymouth.
Yeah.
No, they're,
Awesome.
obviously they're excellent. As I said, I was away playing a poker tournament last week. I did find the time to do my money on Norwich.
Oops.
How did they lose 2-0? I thought Blackburn were just given up and didn't care anymore. How did they beat Norwich 2-0? And why were Norwich 3-1 last week?
I think it was the rise before the Blackburn fall.
Okay.
You've got to remember their last home game before that, they lost 6-1 to Man City.
Yeah, but that's
as well.
what I thought. That was just one of the reasons I backed them, because I thought the bounce back, they were generally. Generally, let me just make a quick point there, because generally I think in English sports, in terms of English betting, when a team gets absolutely caned one week, people want to back them to lose again the next week.
Right.
Whereas in American betting, if a team gets totally thrashed, people say, well, they're going to train an extra day this week, the manager's going to give them a hard time, they've got personal pride to worry about, and they're all going to come back and try 10 times harder the next week. Why does that not happen in football?
Because Wolves play Liverpool, Man United, Chelsea and Arsenal, and they're bad.
I think Liverpool tend to play better away from home, away from the pressure at Anfield. Norwich, I think they've won 2 of the last 10, so they're not exactly in great form, but it's still a very unappealing price, isn't it?
The other thing is, of course, this whole kind of cup final thing. It's not like the odds compilers have just found out that the cup final's coming up. I mean, that was factored in when they put the even money up. I mean, if they weren't playing the cup final, they'd be odds on.
I think what they haven't factored in is watching Liverpool play this season.
That's
Let's move on to a more interesting fixture. Chelsea QPR is an interesting one. Ramifications at both ends of the table, and perhaps a tricky one to call because Chelsea coming off that momentous midweek fixture. How do you guys think that affects this match?
I think it affects it hugely. I mean, I know there'll probably be about 6 or 7 players who weren't in the squad. The SEM will be in it, but they still have travel. They haven't played, but I know these players.
They've been on an emotional journey.
I know they've been part of it. They've been part of it, and I think it's very hard to go from being up there at Barcelona to coming to a QPR. I think it's a very hard sort of emotional fix to do it and get your mindset right. And I give QPR a great chance here. I don't think they'll win the game, but I certainly think the draw makes massive appeal. They've played twice this season. Both of them were 1-0 QPR, 1-0 Chelsea. Very, very tight games, and I can see a repeat of
Well, it sounds like we're all going to agree. I mean, obviously QPR are trying for their life, and Chelsea are probably going to rest a bunch of players. I have to qualify by saying I've backed QPR already. I backed them at 9-1 during the second half of the game, just after the goal. It was like the first thing I did after the goal went in. But they haven't really shortened up that much, have they? Really? I mean, you can still get 8-1 with Ladbrokes.
They got Tarabat suspended for their captain. One of their key
I mean,
players.
what do you think about this one, Chris? Because people are always saying, they're going to rest loads of players, but then there's the other counter argument to that to say, well, the guys that are getting a chance. Are any of them pressing to possibly prove themselves and get to play in the cup final?
I guess it's another angle to look at. I just like the boys here. I'm all over QPR. I tipped them last week. I bet the week at 3-1. They came in. They paid for my weekend debauchery. And I think once again, I would back them to win here. I really would. I just think they're really on a mission to stay up and.
Definitely, you wouldn't. I mean, you wouldn't be rushing to back Chelsea at 2-5, would you? That just seems ridiculous.
If you look at QPR's last 3 games,
I wouldn't really back them at 4-7, though, would you?
No. Well, QPR's last 3 games, they played Chelsea here, where they've got a chance because of what's going on at Chelsea, what they've got to play for. They play Stoke at home, and they play Manchester City away on the final day of the season, and they need 4 points from those 3 games to stay up, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So they'll look at this game saying we've got to get something from this. Whereas Chelsea look at this game thinking, you know what? We're up for it, but we've still got the cup final and we've got the. So I think QPR.
And also from the local derby, as a QPR fan, from the local derby point of view, QPR's hatred of Chelsea is much more than Chelsea's.
You're making the same case. You're making the same case. I don't have flash to make the alternate case. I don't know what to do now. I quite fancy Chelsea to win the game. Don't like them at the price though. Let's move on. Tottenham play Blackburn. This is another game which has the kind of double whammy of relegation and Champions League effect, and 5-2-1 for Spurs at home, as you'd expect. What do you make of this Blackburn team at the moment? It's like you said, Neil, one week it looks like they've given up, then the next week they go out and win.
Well, 2 weeks ago everyone was saying they don't play for the manager, they've accepted that they're relegated. Well, are they 6 on now to be relegated? And then last week they go and do me when I'm on Norwich.
Yeah, I don't think they did that as a personal attack on you.
I don't
think
they might. Looking at, I mean, these prices are pretty much exactly the same as we've just seen for the Chelsea QPR game. There's no comparison for me. You know, I'm all over QPR. I couldn't be all over Blackburn. I don't know what you guys think.
I'm certainly wouldn't be all over Tottenham anyway. Their season is unravelling. Once again, last week it happened again. They just seem absolutely brittle at the moment. Blackburn, again, I can see Blackburn getting a result. Just 1 win in 9 for Spurs in the last 9 games. I think Blackburn 15-2, a small stake, but a small stake nevertheless.
I fancy Blackburn against Tottenham are crippled by injuries as well with this game. Assel Koto's out, Cabal's out, Dawson obviously long-term victim. They've got a couple of other key players. Sahar's out, Adebayor's a doubt. I think Blackburn on the Asian handicap plus 1.5 is a great bet.
Okay, let's move on to the Wigan-Newcastle game. Another game with ramifications at both ends of the table. It's like they set it up beforehand, isn't it? Wigan, who have had some very impressive performance recently at home. Big test for them, of course. And their odds against.
I went to see Wigan play last week. Someone played Fulham, and they played very well. They went 1-0 up, played very, very well, and Fulham just nicked them with a 92nd minute winner. But they're a good side, and I look at this game, and you know what? Look at some fixtures. Some fixtures you look at and you say, you know what? They can't make a case for any of them. On this occasion, I think the prices are right. Absolutely bang right.
Got to agree. It looks like the easiest one to price up the whole week. Couldn't possibly have a bet.
I think Martinez said last week in his post-match interview that the players looked tired. Have Wigan got anything left? I think they went on that great run for the last month, but just coming to the end of this marathon now, have they got anything left? So for me, it would be with Newcastle.
Okay, just a quick word before we move on to this fixture on the top 4 or top 3, as it might be. Do you have a lot of action on people betting on that market?
Not really. I mean, it's very, very quiet compared to the Premier League market. It would probably be not even a 20th, I would have thought, on that kind of market. It's become fashionable because there's always the only reason it's become fashionable, the media making it fashionable, because the race for 4th is more competitive than the Premier League.
They need something to talk about.
But on betting terms, it hasn't really.
It's kind of a compulsory policy, isn't it, on the Racing Post that the back page is always featuring the Premier. And when it's just, Man United are 6-1 on, it's a bit boring.
Yeah. Well, thanks to Man United for livening things up. That is extremely courteous of them. Let's move on. West Brom play Aston Villa in a local derby, which does have some ramifications at the bottom of the table. Void of the day's ramifications, by the way. I've got 2 people in a flat somewhere drinking every time I say it. That's what I do. Aston Villa have kind of been sucked into the relegation. They've been playing like a relegation side, haven't they, Chris?
They're gone. They're gone. I think they're in deep trouble. They're in deep trouble. I know Flash thought they'd get out of it last week, but I just don't know where the next one's coming from. I was really surprised to see West Brom at odds against here. I really was, because they're really playing well at the moment. I think they won 3 of the last 5. Villa just 2 wins in 2012, in big trouble. McLeish must be really scared that he's got 2nd successive relegations of Midlands clubs. West Brom for me here.
To be honest, I kind of thought I was going to be with West Brom here, but I can see a case for making them maybe 10 to 11, but I'm not going to be running down the building society for a loan to get some 11 or 10. I mean, it doesn't seem like a massive risk. Obviously, Villa are terrible. But I guess they'll probably escape just because there's 3 other teams that are in a bad spot and only 2 of them can go down. Or 4 other.
Villa losing at home to Bolton was a terrible result. West Brom to go away last week and win at Liverpool. I think I couldn't really have a bet. I think if someone gave me £100 free bet and said where would you put your money, it's got to be West Brom. But I couldn't really give any sort of extra. I don't think it's a risk in the prices really.
Okay. Notice how many games our experts tell you that there probably isn't a bet to have in the game. You want to be selective where you're putting your money. That's the key. Last match we're going to look at in detail is Stoke-Arsenal. Arsenal trying to look up that 3rd place. Stoke potentially on the beach. Or certainly that may be the case. Last week we told you Newcastle at home could be the bet of the weekend, and that got resolved pretty quickly. Let's have a look at this Stoke-Arsenal game. Stoke are quite a big price, even if they are on the beach.
I quite like Stoke here. I mean, Stoke are notoriously good at home. They're good against the big teams at home. I don't think they've got a point against Manchester United. I think they drew with Chelsea. And the record against Arsenal is very good. They've won 3 of the last 4. And this is an Arsenal side that without Sasson, there's no Arteta, no Walcott. Chamberlain's got a slight knock as well, so the whole midfield is in trouble.
Definitely out, because
I
think
it's a doubt to him. He's not.
That's a team sheet one for me, because if he's out, I think the Arsenal team are a different.
And I think some firms have gone 7-2. I can really see starting. It's going to be wet. It's going to be windy. And it's going to be, and to go there in conditions like we've had in the country.
Is that good for throw-ins then? Wet and windy.
It's going to be.
I like the fact that Sporting Bet have gone for the traditionalist 100 to 30, whereas Blue Square are more modernist with the 10 to 3.
That's a common question from punters. Why is it always 130, not 10 to 3?
Do you know why that is?
I don't know.
It's because threepences were coins in the old days, and so they would, if they went 130, it would encourage people to have a threepence on instead of just having 2p
Quick,
on.
everyone, write that down. Pub quiz time. Is there any danger of us ever switching to the American system, which is much more logical? is that a danger?
I think it's more likely with decimals. I mean, they're racing for change.
That sounds even more logical. Let's do
I
that.
like 100 to 30, mate. The main interest for me in this game is whether Robin van Persie can score a goal.
Oh, yeah, so just quickly talk
wrap
about
up
that.
the top goal scorer.
We know throughout the last few weeks, you've been talking about this Wayne Rooney bet.
Yeah, but I think I mentioned it. Hopefully some people at home have burgled their local betting shop. It was there for some time. 6 to 1 each way. Touch wood, please. We've got the each way pot sewn up now. Aguero scored a couple of goals to creep into third, but it's 33 to 1 bar 2. Basically, it's 8 to 13 now, Robin van Persie. He's been as short as 12 to 1 on to be top goal scorer. He's one ahead. They've both obviously got 3 games to play. And
so your question, just quickly, your question obviously,
should I hedge or not? Yeah. Well, I don't know really. What do you guys think? I mean, I'm wondering, obviously, just for people at home, I would say this idea of greening up,
I would
making your Betfair screen go green.
Definitely hedge.
Just quickly, you would hedge?
Because Arsenal's final home game of the season against Norwich, and I can see him winning that 6-7-0.
Okay.
I really can.
So you would hedge?
I would hedge as well. Van Persie's on holiday.
Hedges all over the place. I say ride it like a hero. Obviously. We're going to do other sports when we come back after the break and take a look at the final day of the championship season. Don't go anywhere. What is up? Welcome back to the Punter. We're going to look at the Championship. It's the final day of the season and a lot of issues already sorted out. A little bit of a battle for the playoffs. We're going to focus on the automatic promotion to the Premier League. Let's have a quick look at the top of the table just to confirm the situation before we get into some odds. And West Ham, a couple of points back from Southampton. And Reading, as we know, already promoted.
Bunch of people I know back them 150 to 1 each way.
Really?
Quite early on, but sometime before Christmas.
They're in the bottom 6.
That's a fantastic
there was a whole group of them all got on it and lumped on.
There must be a little party somewhere. There should
think
be.
So.
Yeah,
in Reading, probably.
Yeah.
In East London.
Yeah. So the last day tomorrow, Southampton play Coventry. Let's take a quick look at those odds.
Couldn't possibly have picked an easier game.
No, it's people always say it's fallen this way. Obviously, it hasn't because the fixture list is the fixture list.
Couldn't have possibly picked. I mean,
but it's a nice fixture for them.
You look at like 3-on shots, and you look at Chelsea at home to QPR, and you look at Tottenham at home to Blackburn. I mean, that's a 3-on shot. They'll beat Coventry by 2 or 3 goals.
Yeah.
Coventry are just very average to manage.
So if you were watching the show and you're looking at accumulation,
play football with a manager. I used to play football with a manager, Andy Thorne.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's built on a bit of weight since.
Big lad.
He's
a big boy.
Yeah, he's a local boy for me. Good centre half, but I mean, he's out of his depth. I mean, he looks like a Jim will fix it this season in that job. Absolutely. Southampton. Yeah. I mean, fix it to me to be a Championship manager, please. Just for a season. And he's out of his depth. Southampton will win it. I think they'll win it.
That would be quite funny if at the end of the game they present him with the medal.
Yeah, you imagine Southampton. I've been a wee bit nervy in the last few weeks. I think they're starting to think about promotion. It's affected them a wee bit, but like Nigel says, Coventry, they're already relegated. It couldn't really got an easier fixture, so I would imagine they'll hold
That was
up.
like the West Ham's only hope that they got to this game of the season, thinking that Coventry needed a point to stay up or something like that, but it
hasn't happened.
It's not going to happen.
The other game is West Ham Hull, and West Ham must win and hope for miracles. The prices on this one, 94 on at Blue Square, 20 to 9 at Sporting Bet.
Do you know what here? I'm telling you, I think West Ham are very, very short here because I think Southampton could be 2-0 up or by half time.
Right.
I really do. And in this game comes a totally non-entity. And I think Hull at 6 to 1 represents some fantastic value here, especially in running. Because I think Southampton could win that 3 or 4-0, and there's nothing West Ham to do. The crowd here will just drop. They know they're in the playoffs, And I've seen so many times where other teams lift themselves, and I think Hull at 6-1 could represent some good value.
You'd fear for West Ham in the playoffs as well, wouldn't you?
I can't believe this, but I said this the other day. I couldn't believe the playoff prices. I think they're absolutely.
Let's have a look
ludicrous.
at them to win promotion. So this is just to come up. So obviously Southampton are going to be huge odds on, as you can see there. And what do you think is ridiculous about this?
Well, the four in the middle are going to be the four that are in the playoffs. You know, West Ham, Birmingham, Blackpool, Cardiff. How on earth West Ham can be 11-8 when they're terrible at home? They've been beaten by Birmingham at home, drew by Birmingham at home. To me, I think Blackpool 11-4. Ian Holloway will get them up for this match. He doesn't care. Blackpool are worth opposing tomorrow. Because Ian Holloway, once you're in the playoffs, he puts out very, very fringe side, and he maintains so he doesn't care if he finishes second, because he's got to play. That's his ethos is we've got to play the teams anyway. It doesn't matter if we're playing first, second, third. They won't be off for this tomorrow. But Blackpool 11-4 and Cardiff, who've got Wembley experience.
I quite like Cardiff.
West Ham.
One seems. You're exactly right. That West Ham price looks ridiculous.
Team that can't win at home.
Blackpool done it 2 years ago as well. They came up through the playoffs. They know how to do it.
If West Ham were 2-1, I'd be thinking they look like a bit of a lay. I mean, how can they do 11-8? That's ridiculous.
There you go. We found some value in there for you. Who knew? Let's check out the snooker show. The World Championships is in full swing, closing in on the halfway point. A few big names already have gone out, but we told you that would happen last week. It was a very, very open draw. How much action do you get on this nowadays?
Well, not as much as we used to. I mean,
no.
5 or 6 years ago, 7 years ago, this was a massive week, you know. And I used to trade this snooker for IG when I used to work with Channing, and it was we used to do our absolute brains on 50 ups. But you know what? I haven't even watched the game.
I've hardly watched any. Although actually last year, I think I was exactly the same. I didn't hardly watch any. And then the second week, I never missed a shot.
I've watched a lot this week.
Oh, really?
Chris, you've watched a lot. Well, therefore, I've taken an expert. Let's have a look at the market. Take us through who's impressed you and at the price.
Judd Trump shortened, even though he was working like against Dominic Dale, but he did have the food poisoning issue. Neil Robertson's been really impressive.
The draw looks okay for Judd Trump, though, doesn't it? It looks like a reasonably easy draw.
Yeah. Higgins, of course, up against Hendry today. Two gladiators taking each other on.
Hendry's in front. Right.
Yes, I know. And of 147, amazing. 22 years after he first won the World Championship, he knocks a 147. What a legend.
How are people knocking 147s and it doesn't even make the news? When I was a kid, I was a kid, the whole world stopped.
It's a news flash.
Bill Warnick stopped drinking the watch.
The other fella who the draw's really opened up for, like I said, I haven't watched too much this week. How's he playing? Matthew Stevens. I think the draw's really opened up for him.
He won his first round game really easily. Of course, twice a finalist. So he knows that. Ali Carter as well, worth keeping an eye on. A big price.
But I think
a lot of health problems.
The first round, what I did say, I mean, I saw Ronnie O'Sullivan play, and he played an opponent in Peter Ebden he's had trouble with in the past. He looked back to his best, and like Ronnie O'Sullivan could be one of the best 92 shots to win this.
He's just a time form squiggle, though.
Yeah, twice in the show we won the time more squiggle. I said the time more squiggle earlier. You're going to get the time more squiggle.
The times that I do my money back in Ronnie O'Sullivan, though, that's just too painful.
Yeah, but it's like, isn't it? After a certain amount of years, he's up for it. So it's like once every 5 years. It's like an equinox.
It's like Spurs in the FA Cup, is it?
Yeah, something like that.
The year of the one.
But to me, it just looks like a table of people who have passed their best, you know, and a young kid.
Hard to say that about Judd Trump.
And a young kid coming through who the hype might be too strong about. We might not be able to handle the pressure.
I just think there must be some value. It just seems very open to me, and you can make a case for people at quite big prices. But there you go. We will keep you informed. We'll be coming up to the closing stages when we do the punter next week. Enjoy the snooker if you have a bet. Now we're going to talk NBA, the National Basketball Association, just in case there was any doubt. The playoff starts this weekend, which is very big news for me and Neil Channing. The other two, not so keen. No. But from a betting point of view, it's fantastic fun. Let's check out the odds to win the championship, because this is one of my bets of the year, which is the San Antonio Spurs at 5-1. You might even be able to find 6-1 in a place.
Yeah.
To me, they are, if you were just making a case for who is the best team and who has been the best regular season team, on record they're the best. How they play, you could argue they're the best. They're also in the Western Conference, so they avoid the top two in the betting, Chicago and Miami. They should be 2.5-1 in my book.
Well, I definitely agree that I don't want to be on Miami at these kind of prices. I mean, Miami feel like, you know, nothing much has happened good for Miami in the last 6 weeks. We started talking about the playoffs about 6 weeks ago, and I was saying, well, I could see maybe Miami are a bet at 7 or 4. They could easily be odds on by the time the playoffs start. Now they feel more like a 5-2 chance. Chicago looked underpriced. I thought Oklahoma might be a reasonable bet, but I don't disagree with you, San Antonio. I actually was looking on Odds Checker this morning, and I noticed that between the fixed odds bookmakers, between all of them at best prices, they were betting to 119. We don't get that anymore in modern bookmaking.
That's just someone's copying something.
It suggests that everyone's got the tracing paper out. No one really knows much about NBA. Yeah. And the fella I won't name any firms, but the fella from this small firm and this small firm and this small firm has said, let's have a look at what Ladbrokes are doing and go roughly similar. And that's why you've got 5-1 with every single firm on your bet San Antonio. I think there's 6s on Betfair. I wouldn't put you off that one for sure.
Yeah. Now you're presumably going to be betting a decent amount during the next 3 or 4 weeks
on the
games in running.
Okay, I'm going to try and make a point that I tried to make a couple of weeks ago, and I don't think I quite got it across. So I'm going to go for it. Have I got time to go for it?
You've got at least a minute.
Okay, here we go. What I like to do when I'm betting on American sports, if you're an odds compiler for American sports, see if you can get your head around this one, Nigel. Okay, go for it, Chris. Come on, concentrate. If you're an odds compiler, you've got 2 choices. You can either set a line when you're setting a handicap or a total points, where half the people will bet one way and half the people will bet the other. Not half the people, half the money.
Half the money.
Half the money will go one way. So we can split the money. The alternative over a 10-year period is to pick a line in which you get the result right in the long run. If people go one way or the other, they can't beat you because your line is accurate in terms of what the result is. Now, you have to choose between the two. When you get fashionable teams like Miami or Chicago, you have to put the handicap just a little bit higher if you want to split the money than you would if you wanted to split the result.
Yep.
And you have to choose what kind of bookmaker you're going to be. If you're the kind of bookmaker that reacts to the enormous amount of money coming into fashionable teams against unfashionable teams, you're splitting the money. And if you're the kind of guy who doesn't care about that, is prepared to have swings.
I know which one you are.
Well, I'm the guy who wants to split the result.
Right,
so if I see
because just to explain, because you want to take advantage of people who are following basically fashionable teams.
And
that's
what happens in the playoffs is, whereas in the rest of the season, 70% of the money is bet by professionals and 30% is bet by the public. In the playoffs, those numbers flip around.
Right.
So now some of the bookmakers say, well, hang on a minute. If Miami win, because they're so ridiculously fashionable, we're going to be absolutely in desperate trouble. We've got to make them 3.5-point favourites in this game instead of 2.5-point favourites in an attempt to split the money.
Yeah.
Now you can take advantage if you're looking to split the result. But it's still 1 point here and there. It doesn't mean you're going to win every single bet you ever have.
No.
But it means in the long run, you should get an edge.
You don't get that on the morning line.
You don't get that on the morning.
This is highbrow stuff.
It is highbrow stuff.
Did that make sense?
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
No, it makes perfect sense.
Okay.
You're going with the mathematical expected outcome against the market move, basically, against the fashion.
He done it in 2 seconds.
He did, didn't he?
I got a D for maths.
Well, you can record it and play it back and figure it out. But there is money to be made if you want to bet professionally on the American sports over here. I still believe that because I still think the information over here is not good. Anyway, we'll keep you informed, me and Neil, on the NBA. After the break, we'll look at some other markets. We'll get some picks from our pundits. You're not going to want to miss it. Welcome back to the Punter, and time for the really serious stuff as we look at The Voice and how the big money is moving. It's not serious, but it's fun. It's the show that's sweeping the nation, or at least sweeping Simon Cowell's bank balance income column. People are getting into it, and a betting market is available. Nigel, as our betting reality TVs are, I'm coming to you.
Yeah, well, I haven't really been watching much of it. I watched a little bit last week for the first week.
You've been doing your research.
Well, when I turned it on, I saw 2 girls in the boxing ring, with low cut tops and short skirts. I thought I quite liked it.
Am I supposed to be Sky Plusing this?
Yeah,
but I was expecting a truckload of mud to appear in the ring, but it didn't. But I mean, the thing is, the thing is about this is that, like I said last week. I mean, we haven't got to the final stage. I mean, there's 40 going down to 20.
I think your point is right about this.
Yeah,
The early favourites are often worth.
When you get to the live finals, you know, if anyone starts on such a high, I mean, I remember that Daniel from in X Factor a couple of years ago. He sung one of the best auditions I've ever seen, and Simon Cowley, he was like 6-4 to win X Factor. He come on the week of Rock Week, and he couldn't string two roads together to Bohemian Rhapsody, but he done that song so well because it was the only song that he'd done. He could go to every karaoke bar and nail that song. But when it was ABBA week, he was absolutely in serious trouble.
Well, it trips us all up, doesn't it?
Imagine that, though, if you could go on a tour around South London pubs, mopping up the karaoke scene.
I think it's been done. I think it's been done before when there was Reddies on.
We'll make you take a camera. Potentially a bit more fun is betting winning coach, because you can bet on one of the most successful record producers on the planet versus 3 singers.
Well, last week everyone told me Jessie J would win this. She was 13-8 last week, and she's now 11-4. Danny O'Donnell. I honestly thought when I saw him first round, I thought it was that old Danny O'Donnell that got the Irish folk singer. I didn't even know that.
Why is that guy for the script the second favourite ahead of Tom Jones and Jessie J?
Well, Will I Am's got to be the favourite. Well, one thing I do still go back to the point is that, and I did say again last week, but I do think there's a lot of these people there who are going to have some skeletons in their closet, and I think at 35, 40 plus. I think there'll be a few tabloid stories coming out about some of these when they get to the final week.
Can't this William fella get in trouble for having his number plate like that?
William. Black Eyed Peas fan.
I am should go beginning of it.
Let's move on. Flash isn't with us this week, but we still have his 5 picks. I know many of you follow him. He's been doing very well this season. Let's check out how he did last week. Shall we? 3 out of 5 is slightly better than a monkey with some darts. So we'll give him credit for that. But not his best week.
Not a big surprise then.
Yeah, there you go. He's all over you. Blackburn won. Coventry did not beat Doncaster. Watford did not beat Peterborough. Last minute equaliser robbed Watford. Huddersfield beat Scunthorpe. Rotherham beat Morecambe. And this week, Flash has gone for, and he is well ahead this season. He is having a fantastic season on these. Everton to beat Fulham. Again, we didn't look at it in detail.
That's one of the best bets for the week. 18 of the last 20 games, Everton have beaten Fulham at home. Their record, Fulham away from home is dreadful. Everton won the last 6. That was one of my best bets of the weekend, Everton to beat Fulham.
Fantastic. So Everton, another tip for you. Arsenal to beat Stoke, we talked about. West Brom to beat Villa. I think it's pretty much scary degrees of unanimity on those couple of fixtures. So expect...
Well, we didn't really like Arsenal.
Yeah, no, Flash has gone against. West Brom we all liked.
Yeah. We liked the 100 to 30 Stoke.
Flash likes a good odds on away in the Premier League. He likes a good odds on.
He loves a short one.
Carlisle to beat Exeter.
I'll tell you what, I've noticed that with Flash's tips. He likes the travellers check.
Yeah, that's what he likes. Carlisle to beat Exeter is absolutely. I'm looking at now. I don't know the price. I know nothing about him, but I know that's a good bet.
Carlisle like 4 to 6.
That's a long journey.
That is a long journey. I went to Carlisle recently.
I've spent many a night.
You people are the statistical experts. Is there any usefulness in that?
Well, they do that. You know, they have that as a thing in the Racing Post on the horses. They have travellers check every day which stables travel the furthest. And if they've gone a long way, they reckon that's a good thing. But this is the whole thing about with the Scottish football when they came up with this idea that away teams are not so disadvantaged as in normal football, because in lower Scottish divisions, if you go away from home. It means the semi-professionals don't have to work in the morning. Yeah. They get the whole day off, so they arrive nice and relaxed. They've been on a bus, they're away from the missus, they're watching a few DVDs, playing a bit of cards on the bus.
But presumably, doesn't your point that you always make apply, which is obviously the bookies, it's not a surprise to the bookies that Exeter and Carlisle are a long way apart.
I know. Is it such a harrowing journey? I think it must Exeter people.
It must make a massive difference in that level of football. I mean, the Premier League, it makes no difference. Newcastle or Southampton is not going to make any difference so people can do that.
There was a discussion I was listening to the other day, and we were talking about it on the Punter last night, about the away goals rule in Europe and how that's an anachronism, because that came in the 60s when travelling was difficult and pitches could be bad and that kind of thing, and whether that should actually go now. It doesn't seem to make... Travelling doesn't seem to make much difference to the top teams.
You say that. Chris took 3 hours to get across the West End.
Down hostage.
He's not away from home here. This is his home.
He's at home.
When I saw you coming with that gear, I thought you might have been in it. I thought you might have nicked your clothes.
Such a flatterer, mate.
Neil, your charity bets.
Bet.
Just one bet.
Well, I want to make the point, actually. Generally speaking, I splash 500 quid around.
That's your allowance. That's what we allow you to set fire to on a weekly basis.
The allowance hasn't been lowered. I just want to make that quite clear because
been cut off.
I haven't been cut off. Honestly, I looked around. I'm going to have loads of bets this weekend, but I'm sure there'll be in running on the snooker, some NBA stuff, relying on late moves in the market, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
There wasn't much in advance that I wanted to back. I do really like QPR to beat Chelsea, but I didn't want to have the whole 500 on it. So I thought, let's prove a point. Sometimes we save some money for next week.
Yeah, well, this is the point we were saying earlier about not betting on every game. Just on that QPR Chelsea thing, I like asking this question because I think it's interesting for people at home. At what price would QPR would you not want to back?
Well,
them?
I was just saying before, I wouldn't really. If you said to me you can have 4 to 7 Chelsea, I wouldn't be jumping all over that price.
Yeah. So
and at 4 to 7 Chelsea, QPR would be about 9 to 2. So I guess 9 to 2 is the point where I say, no, actually, I'm not interested.
So
at
actually,
6 to 1, I would still be interested.
So at 8 to 1, this is actually
I really do fancy this.
If you put this into perspective, if this QPR Chelsea game was the final day of the season and Chelsea were playing in the Champions League final, and QPR needed to win to be in to stay in the Premier League, QPR would be a 7 to 2 shot.
Which is not far off what's happening.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That is really interesting. Chris, this weekend, give us some. Where would you be putting your money?
I've got a couple for you, Nick.
Yeah.
Deep Purple in the Bet365 Gold Cup. Run a bad couple. Its last 2 races have been pretty poor, but it loves Sandown. Won the London National at Sandown. 16 to 1. This is a classy horse. It's a big price.
Although we've had a lot of rain, it's only soft, isn't it? It's heavy on the flat course, but it's only soft on the chase
windy,
course.
You
should appreciate the ground. 16 to 1. It's a big price for a classy horse. And my favourite bet in the football coupon this week is Bolton to beat Sunderland. Sunderland are not just on holiday; they're in the bar drinking sangria. Bolton 17 to 5 is a monstrous price.
I quite like Bolton. I've got to agree with that. I like Bolton.
Load of injuries. Sunderland got a load of injuries as well.
I don't think they scored a goal for 5 games or something.
470 minutes or something like that. They're in the bar.
That's a lot of minutes.
Yeah.
That is a good price.
That's
I agree with you. Nigel, anything we haven't covered that you like?
No, not really haven't covered. I mean, I'm looking at them 3 short prices in the Premier League. I'm looking at Chelsea, I'm looking at Tottenham, and I'm looking at Arsenal. And I'll be a layer of all 3 of them. And if one of them gets beat, we've got our money back. If 2 of them gets beat or gets a draw, it's turned over, we're in profit. So I'll be taking on those three short ones.
Okay, and Neil, not betting much anti-post, but you're looking at.
I'll be getting involved. I quite like that Bolton. I'd forgotten about that. I might back Bolton. I'll definitely get involved in running on the Premier on Saturday afternoon, and the QPR bets on Sunday. I'll definitely be involved in that game. I'll be laying Chelsea, and the snooker. I think I'll be glued to the snooker this weekend. Frame by frame stuff. That's what I like.
Frame by frame. Do you see a lot of? So there's a lot of non-professional money being paid on the snooker.
Sometimes it depends. If it's like Saturday afternoon on Grandstand, they don't have Grandstand anymore, do they? You know what I mean, though. That's when normal recreational people are betting on it.
Yeah.
That's when I like to bet on it. If you're having to press your red button on a Thursday afternoon to see the game,
not so much.
You're just playing against other professionals.
I know Stace, our producers, are very, very big fan of the rugby. The rugby, you've got Heineken Cup so far. Not a great believer of rugby. I don't actually know much about it. But one thing I do know is semi-finals are notoriously very, very tight. They've got 2 very close semi-finals, and the weather at Twickenham is the rain and the winds, and if you can beat going under total points at 36.5, 37.5, those kind of lines, that's a great bet today. Okay. And also buying the time of the first try around about 23 minutes after that in the weather. That'd be brilliant.
We've done fair one to beat Aberdeen as well. I got that from a Scottish mole.
Scottish Moors are completely reliable. I told you my bet of the week, which is San Antonio. Fantastic value in the basketball. We'll give you some more basketball tips to go on because I know you'll love them. Huge thanks to all of their amazing advice this week. It's been a great show. Thanks to Nigel, Neil and Chris. There'll be more Punter very, very soon. Have a fantastic weekend. I hope all your bets are winners.
Stay ahead of the game with Sports Tonight Live. Don't miss a thing. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Search for Sports Tonight Live on Facebook and like our fan page. Follow Sports Tonight TV on Twitter and tweet us your thoughts and opinions. Sports Tonight Live, it's the platform for the fans.